Hello, you're very welcome to this episode of our podcast. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Rob Watson to talk all about security operations. So we're going to talk about how SOCs should be structured, building a high-performing team of SOC analysts, helping to tackle things like burnout in security operations, and what it really takes to build an in-house SOC. So let's go ahead and get started. Rob, first off, would you like to introduce yourself?
Certainly. Thanks, Ciaran. So my name is Rob Watson. I am the Senior Vice President of Security Services at eSentire. And essentially what that means is I run the SOC. I've been with the company for close to 12 years now and joined in the very, very early days when we were very small. I was probably employee number 30. So I've done it all over the last 12 years, worn a different variety of different hats, worked in different departments and had different goals and aspects for me to do here. So I spend a good portion of my time building out our managed risk services teams, pen testing, vCISO consulting, vulnerability scanning, audits and assessments, things of that sort. And for the last, 3 or 4 years, I have been running the Global Security Operations Center.
Excellent. So I suppose when we think about security operations, you hear a lot about people, process, and technology. So maybe we'll start by focusing on the people side of things, and then we can go from there. By way of context, I suppose I might elaborate a little bit on our Global Security Operations Center in eSentire. So it's a very mature operation. We've been doing this for quite a number of years. We're about 111 SOC analysts currently spread across 2 locations, one in our HQ in Canada and our second one here in Ireland where I'm based. And we've done a lot of things over the years to really mature how our SOC operates, and we'd like to kind of dive into a few of those. And I'm not taking a biased view. We feel our SOC program here is extremely strong, and I'm not just talking from a customer perspective, also from a security analyst point of view as well. So we've created some really great programs here. So Rob, we might start by talking a bit about or just the start of an analyst journey or hiring process, what we look for in terms of taking in security analysts. Maybe you can sort of tease that apart for us a little bit.
Yeah, certainly. So, we have found that it's obviously a very competitive talent market out there, and we've had great success from kind of fostering relationships with educational institutions and then building our own kind of analysts right from the start, starting with co-op and intern programs right up to hiring them and then taking them through different learning paths and helping them progress their careers through our SOC. So an analyst who comes in is going to hopefully have a nice foundational background in networking, security, technologies, and so on, and then we're going to build upon that with them. We've got a variety of different learning paths that we've mapped out that are core skills essential to doing the job at eSentire. As analysts, work through those skills and become certified. So we take them through the training, then put them through, the examination certification process. We actually provide a salary top up right away for them. So each time they learn one of these skills and become certified, there's a salary top up that happens. It's not a one-time bonus. It's actually out of their salary perpetually moving forward. And we review this on a quarterly basis. So it's a great way for that beginning kind of junior analysts to start to build out their skill sets. We're helping to provide the training material, and we're also rewarding them as they hit these goals. As those analysts progress and they start to certify and get all those core skills in place, then they may be eligible based on other metrics in their performance for a promotion to tier 2. At tier 2, we would then open up a external training budget for them and actually say, you've done great. You've mastered everything we've given you internally. You've been promoted. Now we want you to go out and get other certifications that might be meaningful to your position, perhaps like an OSCP or whatever it may be, CISSP or a SANS certification. So we'll give them some budget, and the same process applies that if they are successful and they pass the certification, another salary top up comes into place. So that's our tier 2s. And then we also have tier 3. We're getting into more senior analysts and specialized roles that may get into tuning things in the SOC or doing project work, incident handling roles where people are assuming kind of operational controls of incidents that have been a bit bigger than a breadbasket, operations leads, and so on. So really the SOC is staffed with people in tier 1, 2, and 3, and then specialized supporting roles as well.
Yeah, we might elaborate a little bit, Rob, on the structure of the tier 1, 2, and 3, because we know from other security operations center environments that's a typical SOC structure. But I think ours is a little bit unique in some of the things you described there, such as the career dev program and how we very transparently progress our analysts through to the different tiers and so on. But maybe if we look at look at it in terms of the day-to-day responsibilities. So let's focus on tier one as a starting point. What are our analysts at tier one typically doing? How are they responding to security threats day to day?
Well, it goes back to something I just said too about our analysts being a little bit different, and the reason that we do try to build our own. So our initial tier is actually our platform. So we call that kind of tier 0, right? And that is doing the job that in many other companies or SOCs you would have kind of an initial triage role, filling that void. But our platform is kind of helping to aggregate, decorate, and provide enrichments for the information they're seeing, avoid duplicate information or duplicate investigations, grouping things together, and so on. So that's kind of the starting point that helps us eliminate some of that noise. It keeps analysts from having to just investigate the same scanning behavior over and over again. The platform will identify things we've seen or take automatic actions on things that we know how to handle without even involving an analyst. When it gets to an analyst one, so they're mainly going to be looking at two things, board monitoring, which is what we call it. Basically, we have a tool we call SOC Dash, which is where all of the different signals from our customer environments and different technologies are feeding into it. An analyst will be fed events, and he'll be tasked with investigating those right through to completion. So not just triaging and sending an email, but perhaps even taking isolation actions, isolating a host, putting TCP resets in place, whatever it may be, or if the analyst feels that this is a larger incident and it needs more than just a single host being isolated or some sort of a small response, then they may escalate it up to tier 2 or tier 3, saying, I need a second opinion, I'm not quite sure, or this is bad, but I think it might be even worse than I'm thinking. We may need to have a stronger response or engage incident handling or IR teams. So it may kick up the ladder to a tier 2 analyst then, who would provide a secondary review and help kind of jump on with that analyst to do a huddle and understand what they're looking at. If it does look like it's a really serious, again, hands-on keyboard attack or ransomware, something of that sort, then it would go up to our tier 3 team and our incident handlers, where we would assign essentially an operational commander who's going to assume, become the main point of contact with that client, and actually the SOC keeps doing what they're doing. They're still shutting down hosts, they're still sending alerts, they're still identifying indicators of compromise and so on. But that incident handler acts as that kind of holistic, controller or main point of contact, or assuming operational command over that incident and working directly with the client.
Yeah. I might just come back to one of your first points there, Rob. You talked about tier 0 being the platform, and I think that's been a game changer for us. I've been doing this many years with eSentire, and I think back to the earlier years where our analysts were focused on a lot of more noisy work, I suppose, less fruitful work, where they were doing manual investigations of sort of network scanning type activity, and it wasn't particularly useful. I think the platform, as we've evolved it, our XDR platform has really changed the game for us and how we effectively deliver our services. Are you able to elaborate a little bit on the types of changes we've continuously made and what we're continuing to do in this area? Because I think this is a new area in some manner of speaking in terms of XDR, and people can be a bit confused about it. How have we kind of used that technology within our security operations center?
I mean, it's the core of what we do, right? So, this is one of the difficulties in trying to build your own SOC, is that if you're going to just try to manage a variety of different tools, an endpoint tool, log tool, network, whatever it be, cloud, you can't have analysts jumping for different dashboards and going all over the place and pivoting and just, kind of, it's chaotic and often leads to drowning in noisy alerts. You need someone who also understands how to tune these systems. You can have things, firing up on any time, and every little thing that happens on the network, and you will just drown in noise, right? So a lot of what our platform's doing is eliminating that noise. It is handling things automatically for us. It's saying, we know that IP is bad. It's been our deny list for the last 20 days. Just break that connection, send a notification to the client, letting them know what we did. No further action needed, right? Or perhaps it's doing something like saying, hey, these 10 things happened all at once. Instead of dispersing them to 10 different analysts doing 10 different investigations, they appear to be related. This is something we need to group together and do a holistic investigation of, and look at it as one single incident or single kind of threat versus different myopic pieces.
And one of your points there leads me on to my next question as well. You talked about drowning in alerts, I think you described it as. So that's a typical thing that SOC analysts have to deal with, and of course it leads to burnout. So security operations centers are synonymous with being challenging environments to work in. So you could potentially be working 10, 12-hour shifts on a rotating pattern, where you're doing kind of days, evenings, nights over a 3-week period. You're dealing with, as you said, sort of noisy tools and drowning in alerts and all of that sort of thing. So I suppose like we've done a lot here to combat that type of thing over the years as well, from a kind of a people management perspective. So two things that we've done, for example, would be the way we structure our shifts, and they're predominantly 8-hour static shifts, so it's a very predictable from a work-life balance perspective for the analysts. But equally, we've really introduced and enhanced the people management side of things, so the analysts are supported. So maybe you might kind of drill into that for us a little bit more and talk about the team leads that we have, what they do day to day, and how analysts are supported in this environment.
Yeah, we've got a variety of things to support the analysts because, again, I mentioned the platform being core, but without the people, the platform can't do it all on its own, right? The people are required to run the tools. So we've got a ton of different things that we put in place to support analysts. To your point, about burnout, if an analyst sits on the board and they spend 8 or 10 hours just investigating the same things in and out, they're going to get tunnel vision, they're going to get blinders on, they're going to get fatigue, and they're going to start to make mistakes. So we need to break up that monotony and make sure that they're able to be fresh, right? This is the same sort of thing. We've taken a lot of lessons from the air traffic control industry, right? A mistake made there is catastrophic and leads to the loss of human life. In many cases, the scenarios we're dealing with are quite as serious. It may not be a plane crash, but perhaps someone's attacking a hospital and there's patient data or even procedures or surgeries or things that are going to get delayed. So it's very critical that we're on top of those things as well. So in terms of our analysts, each one is assigned to a team lead that, we try to keep the ratio, around 8 to 10 analysts per team lead so that they can get face time with them. There's regular one-on-ones and coaching opportunities. We have a variety of internal resources from a dedicated QA team and a dedicated training team that can help with these analysts as well. So mentorship programs, both in the SOC where they can get paired up with a buddy who's going to help them as they learn and navigate their path to the SOC, but also corporate mentorship programs where if they want to get exposure to someone else in the company, they can do that. If an analyst is on the board and they're monitoring and, a few hours go by, we actually have pop-ups that might hit up and say, hey, you've been in this role for a while, do you need a change? Do you need a break? Do you need to step out? And if they, click yes, then it's going to notify their ops lead who's going to pull them off that, give them, another task to go work on casework or research training, whatever it may be, and bring somebody else in dynamically so we're keeping up with the workload. So the people are a huge part of that. We offer flexible vacation here as well, 8-hour shifts. It's all about trying to avoid burnout and keep people interested. The platform part as well. If I have an analyst that sits there and they're just doing the same investigations, someone scanned you, someone scanned you, someone scanned you, it just becomes monotonous and you're just going to get bored and say, I want to do something different. I don't want to stay here, right? So keeping the investigations interesting and new and fresh and new emerging threats, and making sure the analysts know the importance of the work they're doing, that you may be shutting down a bad guy. This is what drew me to cybersecurity. I've always had an interest in law enforcement, and really you're policing the bad guys on the internet, right? We're trying to stop bad people from doing bad things and protect the innocent, and that goes a long way for keeping people engaged in their role.
Yeah, definitely a lot of info there. A couple of things I might just kind of comment on or add to there. In terms of the people leaders that we have, we've supported them through various levels of leadership training as well, and there's not a lot of external content specifically for leaders in cybersecurity, and it's a known issue. So we're partnered with a lot of organizations, and we work closely as a community. And here in Ireland, for example, we actually worked with Cyber Ireland to develop a specific leadership development training course for cybersecurity professionals. And we've had 2 people over here undertake that. And I know there's similar programs on the Waterloo Canadian side as well. And equally then in terms of what the team leads do sort of day to day, week to week in terms of supporting their analysts, I think one of the things that we do very well now and we've really improved over the years is our use of metrics to be able to understand how the analysts are performing at a very minute microscopic level. How effective they are in their roles, really utilizing those metrics in regular one-to-one conversations, again, so analysts understand how they're getting on the different areas, if they need to improve on anything. So that's a big change that I've seen in the organization here over the last number of years as well.
Huge. And I should have mentioned before, but data is king, right? So we have operationalized our SOC using data from our systems fed into Power BI. That's the tool we chose, and we have unlimited dashboards and data points that we can use to understand what we're seeing, from trends in different types of threats that are emerging in different noisy signatures, to problems with specific run books, or down to, like you said, the individual analyst metrics, where we can tell them exactly how they're doing, how they're comparing against peers, scatter plots, where we can look for anomalies. And sometimes an anomaly isn't a bad thing. If somebody stands out from the pack, it's maybe just because they've figured out something else that another analyst hasn't, and we have to go to them and say, how are you doing this faster than everybody else? And then we apply that learning and knowledge, or maybe we build another tool or a component of technology that can help us with what that analyst has figured out. So there's also a lot of crowdsourced ideas and innovation. If you make it easy for the people who are facing the problems to help you also solve those problems, it can be very powerful.
Absolutely. So we've delved pretty deep there. So I'm going to zoom back out a little bit. So I suppose our SOC is a little bit unique, I suppose, in that obviously it's an outsourced service that we offer through MDR to clients, and we work with a large number of clients worldwide across a range of different industries, all shapes and sizes. Really, I know we kind of started more in the SMB space and financial services, but over the years we've added healthcare, legal, manufacturing, to name just a few. And we're certainly seeing that we're working with a lot of more larger clients now as well. So, looking at it from a kind of a customer's perspective, maybe we could just talk about the value in having a security operations center and what it brings to the table. Because a lot of our clients, I suppose, are fighting this fight before we joined them, or before they partnered up with us. They were kind of doing this potentially by themselves. Maybe they had an in-house security team, and different scenarios there. But what do you feel is the real value that a security operations center team brings to the table for security leaders?
I mean, the real value is the outcomes, right? Preventing breaches and shutting things down. That's what it boils down to at the end of the day. I'd say that the challenge and a lot of the reason that the customers are coming to us is, this is all we do. This is our business, right? So if you're, maybe somebody who is a legal firm or healthcare or something, you may not have a lot of expertise in cybersecurity, and trying to build out the tool sets, the knowledge, the people, it is incredibly hard. I mean, again, this is our entire business. It's what we do day in and day out, and that's how we figured out a lot of nuances and tooling and improvements, and learned over 20 years of doing this. Trying to just spin up a SOC in-house in a company that maybe doesn't have a lot of cybersecurity expertise is incredibly challenging. You're going to need large budgets for tooling. You're going to need to either build some tooling yourself, or else go out and pay for others who can give you that SOAR type functionality, or whatever it may be, or tip tools. All these subscriptions are expensive, and if you're not willing to put the money into R&D and build it yourself, you're going to pay for it. And then you have to find the talent, and attracting talent and keeping them interested and busy is tough as well. If you want to provide 24/7 coverage, you're going to need a decent contingent of SOC analysts to do that, and then you've got to compete with vacations and sick time, and how do I know that I have enough people on at any given time for the amount of load that's coming through? All of these things are very challenging, and stuff that over the years we've refined and mastered. We use heat maps to understand the average load that we see at every point in the day, and how many people we need to have on at that point to handle it. And then we have some dynamic kind of burst ability to adjust and flex resources as needed. This is tricky in a small organization, even in an enterprise. Again, if it's not what you specialize in, it's there's a steep learning curve, and a lot of expensive tools and costs that go with it. And if you don't keep people engaged and have them suffer from, like I said, the alert fatigue, where they're just drowning in different tools and alerts and noise, you're going to have a retention problem as well, and that's going to be a constant churn that'll keep weighing on your business.
Yeah, again, a lot to unpack there. I might take you back to the first point you made around what a SOC brings to the table in terms of just outcomes. And part of achieving the right outcomes, I suppose, is also not just the people side of it, but the technology side of it. And again, in the time I've been here in eSentire, we've matured and evolved from predominantly looking at network information security, I suppose, network intrusion detection and response, and some SIM type, log type work as well, through to sort of EDR, cloud technology, and beyond. So I suppose when you look at outcomes that we have for our customers, when you think about the ones that are maybe better, what do you tend to see is a common theme there in terms of the tooling side of it? Like, are we typically employing multi-signal approaches where we have a lot of visibility, and how do the investigations tend to differ depending on the scenarios?
I mean, security is belts and suspenders, right? So multiple layers of security. You know, it's the lame old analogy, but it is what it is, right? So, and we've run into this with clients that maybe purchased one service, right? And we see something happening, and we're able to start taking some action. But because there's visibility gaps, you can't see the whole picture, right? So if you're only able to see one slice, you may be able to tell them, hey, something's going on. You may be able to take some actions, but without being able to see the full picture, you may not be able to get to root cause or understand how they originally got in and help them shut it down and do full remediation, right? So really, I think that's where the industry shifted from just buying a SIM product at one point and saying, I've got a SIM, we're great. Well, no, you need to have different layers of data and different detections, endpoint data, what's happening on the endpoints, what's happening at the network edge and the traffic that's coming out, what are we seeing in the logs? And we will catch something in log sometimes that we don't see anything in network or endpoint, and other times we'll see something in endpoint that didn't show up in network and log, and other times it lights up like a Christmas tree. We've got data all over the place that we can use to do that. But our incident handlers, particularly when they get into an incident where there's something hands-on keyboard going on, they're very hampered if they don't have access to all that different data, the cloud data, log data, network data, endpoint, everything like that. It can get to a point where we're only able to go so far where there's a visibility gap, and then we may have to recommend, hey, like you might need to bring in IR because we just can't see everything that we need to see to help bring this to full remediation. Right?
Yeah. No, I'd echo that. I was chatting with our incident handling manager during the week. He used the phrase, move your detections to the left in wider attack. So, being able to detect more and see more at the earlier stage. Interesting point you made as well about the traditional approach in security operations being heavily SIM focused. I read a report this week actually, which made me a little bit nervous, with a local educational institution here in Cork that had a crippling ransomware outbreak this time last year actually, and they just produced a report on it a year on, and they've now implemented SOC as a service to inspect alerts that go into their SIM. Like, oh dear. So I think, to echo your point, the more visibility we have, particularly when there is hands-on keyboard threat actor activity going on, our incident handlers love the ability to be able to go in and pull the data from all these different tools. But being able to manage all that, I think, is a challenge, right? So if you're trying to do this by yourself,
yeah,
you're going to be overwhelmed.
Yeah, and it wasn't a knock on SIM. SIM plays an important part in it, but it's one part, right? And that there's security is evolving constantly. There's just more new threats, new detections, and so on. And relying on SIM alone is probably going to leave gaps in your security strategy.
Yeah, agreed. So maybe another question from the kind of customer perspective for security leaders out there who are navigating tight budgets, and we know most, if not all of them, probably are. Even if you're in a large enterprise organization, you're probably being asked to do more with less. What advice, if any, can you offer when they're in the market for a SOC provider to try and help them out?
Look for proven ones. Look for references and things that you can get right that show that they have a track record. They're at one point there was a handful of companies doing what we do, and then there's a lot of I don't mean to be critical, but fake MDR, people that have just jumped on the bandwagon and kind of rebranded as MDR. So a lot of questions. How long have you been doing this? How do you do this? Like really dig in and understand what they're doing and how they're doing it. If it's just again, hey, well, we're an MSSP, we'll manage your SIM and send you alerts. That's really not the part that you need. Unless you have an extensive in-house SOC already, and you just need someone to provide that first line triage for you. But if you really, a lot of the companies that we have dealt with, they're into food production or entertainment or legal healthcare. What I said, this is just not an expertise for them. So they rely on somebody like us, and they need that expertise and that well-rounded kind of set of capabilities, right? So I'd say, budgets are tight. You get what you pay for. You're not going to be able to go out there and buy everything you need. You can't buy, if you want to get everything on the card, you're going to come up with some huge number that isn't going to, so you need to look very carefully at what are you trying to protect? What are the scenarios that you're most worried about? Is it data exfiltration? Is it, your brand being attacked? Or is it simply, a production shutdown because of something like ransomware? Understand the threats that are going to matter most to you, and then understand what technologies and what services are going to be best positioned to try and stop those specific scenarios that keep you up at night, right? Again, you're never going to get 100% coverage, but it's about reducing as much risk as you can.
One point I might even just add to that is around the response capabilities as well. You put it very well there, Rob, when you were talking about sort of fake MDR, MSSPs just sending alerts. Like the response component, I think, is important. So here in eSentire, we've got the ability to disrupt network traffic. We've got the ability to isolate hosts off the network, to disable user accounts, and we can do that in a very quick turnaround time period. So it's important, I think, for potential buyers or users of a service to understand what are those providers actually going to do for them beyond alerting them about something. Do they have the ability to take response actions? What are they? How effective are they? And I think it comes back to our multi-signal approach, multi-technology approach, using our foundational XDR platform. We've got the ability to do all of the above.
Yeah, but if someone's going to just call you in the middle of the night and say something bad's happening, you should take care of it. That's not great, right? Versus our experience would be that if something really bad is the human action and we're calling someone to wake them up in the middle of the night, we're telling them what we've done already. Hey, we've picked up on this activity. We've banned these hashes. We've isolated these hosts. We've killed these connections. But there's still an incident you need to be aware of, and we need you to collaborate with us further. So we see ourselves as an extension of their team, really the front lines of it almost, and we'll work with them. But it to your point, yeah, someone who's just going to send an alert and wake you up in the middle of the night and say good luck, that's not going to be very helpful.
That won't get into well. So this next question, I'm very curious about your insights, because it's a question that we tend to hear in the industry. At the start of the year, in particular, we look forward as to what's going to happen with the threat landscape this coming year. What are the threat actors going to be doing differently? But I suppose looking specifically at security operations, where do you see things evolving to, or in the course of the next little while? We hear a lot, obviously, about AI, ML, ChatGPT-3. We hear a lot about co-pilots and things now that are helping SOC teams and so on. But definitely curious where you see things moving to as you look forward.
I do think you'll see a lot more ML AI type things, helping SOCs do their job, right? So you're always going to need people. You're never going to be able to just automate this the way where some, LLM system is just, making determinations for you. But if you can help put more data at analysts' fingertips, or if you can use LLMs and some of these machine learning algorithms to simplify that SOC analyst job, whether it's weeding out false positives, whether it's doing advanced, kind of more behavioral detections that might evade normal rules and security signatures and detections, that's all important. We've even used it for things to help kind of shore up our quality, right? So we have a machine learning algorithm we call Hawkeye that actually looks at an analyst decision. And if an analyst decides not to alert, they're looking at an investigation, they say, I don't think that this is anything serious, I don't think it requires an alert. Hawkeye actually compares that against the machine learning model it's been trained on, and says, well, yeah, we agree with you, Mr. Analyst. This doesn't look like it needs an alert. Or they might say, no, our model thinks that this the type of activity should be alerted on. And then it actually kicks it up to a tier 2 analyst for them to do the kind of tie-breaking review, where they'll look at the analyst investigation, the reasons that Hawkeye has suggested that may not be the right course of action, and they'll make the final determination. So we've deployed that and used it, and we do over 25 to 30,000 investigations a month, but Hawkeye's fired maybe a couple hundred times in that time frame, and maybe a handful of cases that we actually ended up choosing to go with Hawkeye and send an alert. So it's a safety net. It's another mechanism to ensure that the humans are doing the right things, and that we're using technology and people to solve the problem.
Yeah. One other point I might touch on there, and this is coming also from some other conversations I've been having with our incident handlers and threat response unit team members during the week, just around what the threat actors are kind of doing. So this week, for example, we saw the takedown of the Lockbit ransomware gang in terms of some infrastructure being crippled on their side. But we're kind of seeing threat actor TTPs kind of evolve to using particular initial access vectors that are difficult to detect for traditional security tools and security operation centers and so on. So what do you think moving forward will be critical in ensuring the efficacy, I suppose, of the SOC analysts that we have here, and everybody else might have as well, and really being able to properly detect and prevent these types of things, because it's continually evolving, right? It's not becoming any easier, and it's not becoming any quieter.
No, it changes overnight. I used to joke about, I'd have a client say something to me like, yeah, I ran a vulnerability scan, every 6 months. And I'm like, well, that's it's irrelevant a few days after you ran it because of, new patches and new threats and things that have emerged, right? So and this is another reason that makes it so difficult to do it on your own. We deploy a massive team here of what we call our true team threat response unit, who does threat intelligence and ongoing, new detections and looking at emerging threats and attacks, and even dissecting and mining, incidents from the SOC and turning those into new detections and new IOCs, right? So without that department, we would be forced to rely on external feeds where you're going to pay an exorbitant amount of money, and the data you get may or may not be, vetted very well. It could just be a dump of stuff that they've got from other places, right? So, having that in-house dedicated team that focuses is on emerging threats and new trends and what's happening in the market. What are we seeing in the wild? I go back to the vulnerability reference that, a vulnerability may come out and it's got a critical rating and everyone's panicking, but there's actually no public exploit code. And so it's sort of, preemptive. Yes, we should patch this, but this isn't maybe the biggest priority because there's this high vulnerability over here that no one's talking about that we're seeing exploited day in, day out, right? So we're in a great position where with our large kind of global customer base, we see a lot of these different things happening in real time. We can mine that data and use it to protect the rest of our customer base. We see an attack happen at one customer, then we can, our true team, dissects that, rolls out new protections, detections, and IOCs, and we roll that out to the rest of the customer base so that we're staying kind of on the cutting edge. Attacks are getting more sophisticated too. People are using LLMs to help with their phishing, engagements and emails and things. And I always go back to that one of the easiest ways to get into a business is through the people. People often are the weakest link, and a good social, engineering training program is part of a well-rounded security program as well. But LLMs bring, it makes it easy to craft, new emails and new ways and tricks and tactics to fool people and hit them that way.
Yeah, and we're also hearing it's more likely that we're going to see LLM generated malicious code, I think, as well, which is another sort of threat vector moving forward. So, as you say, constantly moving battlefield. You touched on a couple of points there that made me think it would be good for us to maybe just elaborate a bit on how we work in a collaborative way with the likes of the threat response unit when there is that real sort of war room type situation where we have hands-on keyboard threat actor activity confirmed within a customer's environment. So maybe I'll set the scene. I'll let you take it from there then. So if a SOC analyst in eSentire has, through the detections that they have available to them, seen that it looks like we have actual hands-on keyboard activity, and what they kick off is called a incident handling procedure. So we have a team within the Security Operations Center that then move things from there, and it becomes collaborative and very much a war room type situation. Maybe you might kind of step us on from there, Rob, in terms of how those things typically work, because again, customers really want to know this, how we're going to be able to handle those types of incidents if they ever occur.
Yeah, no. So it starts from the analyst, right? So the individual analyst who picks up on some activity is going to take the actions that he deems fit, whether it's isolating a host, escalating to the client, and so on. But once it's clear that, hey, this is a serious incident and we're going to need to rally the troops and have a significant response to protect the client, to your point, they kick off the incident handling procedure. That spins up a war room, basically, where we rally the troops. We pull in, our special forces is deployed, basically, essentially, right? So we pull in members from the true team, from the threat intelligence team, who are going to help start looking at, have we seen anything like this before? Are these IOCs known to us? Is this, type of malware maybe that we're seeing something that we've seen before or not? So they might help us reverse engineer that and understand what it's doing, so we can understand if they're trying to exfiltrate data or what it is that they're actually trying to accomplish. And they collaborate together as a single unit. So it's sort of like, our artillery and then the field units working together on a battlefield, right? The incident handler is going to be the one communicating with the client and providing the updates, jumping on a bridge with them perhaps to work through the issue and so on. The SOC keeps doing what they're doing, that they're going to be feeding incidents into the war room. Hey, we're seeing this now on this host, we've taken this action, and so on. And the true and kind of incident response teams are behind the scenes helping us, dissect that and provide, expertise guidance, really, as subject matter experts. These are some of the best and brightest we have in the business, and they love to get their hands dirty. We can't keep them out of there. Like we've had someone who was in that team and they left, pursued to an opportunity at one of the big four consulting firms. And I think they came back 3 months later because they were like, I want real world. I don't want to, do GRC and talk about events. I want to see events, and I want to dive into those events, and I want to work on events, and I want to stop the bad guys. I'm very, very passionate about that. Nothing pains me more than seeing bad guys win. So, everyone here is very, very vested in collaborating and shutting them down. And also, it's what makes people passionate about cybersecurity, is that they're interested. People don't want to go home if they're in the middle of one of those fights. Their shift's over. They're like, I don't care. I'm staying. I'm like we're going to see this through. We're going to shut these guys down and stop this. It's
we see that time and again, don't we? Like we see people on those teams that they're not even scheduled to work potentially, or they haven't even been called yet, and they're jumping in because it's just their bread and butter.
You can't keep them out of it.
No, you can't. And we're very lucky here in eSentire with the caliber of people we have that can do this kind of work, because the more experience you have, the quicker it is, I think, to be able to identify what you're seeing and take the actions. I remember a vulnerability that we had a lot of activity around last year, a Citrix NetScaler remote access vulnerability. I think we saw it exploited in about 6 or so different clients. I can remember the incident responder people, they knew the infrastructure, they knew the IPs so quickly because they'd seen it so many times. As the incidents evolved, they were just able to get through them infinitely quicker. So having that expertise, but also the exposure, to your point about the person who went away and came back, the continuous exposure to this is kind of key as well. So look, we're probably coming up on time. I might just kind of look to wrap up. And maybe my final question to you, Rob, is just to get some advice from you to maybe hopeful SOC analysts who want to kind of break into this industry. So we have a lot of people that want to do that and apply when we've got open roles here, and they're looking to get a start or get ahead in their careers. Have you any kind of guidance or maybe advice to people who are looking to get their foot in the door and looking to jumpstart a career in this sector?
Yeah, I mean, get some certs. You don't need to get anything crazy. You don't need to come in with a SON cert, but just something to show that you've got that foundational knowledge. I myself, I'm a lot bigger on experience versus certifications, but if you're trying to get your foot in the door, you're going to need something to prove that you know at least the basics and that you can demonstrate that. But the next thing I'd say is learn on your own. Go do some try hack me labs. Go participate in conferences or free webinars, or there's always capture the flag exercises people are making open to the public. Learn. Find peers, find groups online, whether that's some social media group or Reddit or whatever it is that you want to use, and take an active interest in it. The analysts that we see that are the best analysts are the ones that are passionate about it. They're the ones that have built a home lab or a network, and they like to play around with it, and it's something that is not only a career for them, but a hobby, a passion that they enjoy, right? Not to say that if you're not just spending your weekends building out labs at home, that you're not ever going to be able to be a great analyst or something, but that passion goes a long way to and a curious mindset as well. Someone who wants to solve problems and challenges and really understand what they're seeing. My boss used to joke that it's like one part engineer, one part air traffic controller, and one part Fortnite. Like sort of the mix of analysts. I don't know that I agree with some of that, but people who play video games often do translate into cybersecurity, because they have that problem solving mindset, and they want to get engaged and actively solve things. So I think I went a little bit off topic there, but again, get some base certs and learn. Take activity to go try labs and try and do things and be passionate about it.
No, I definitely echo the passionate piece. It's something we look for when we're hiring our analysts. Like, are they really passionate about this area? And luckily for them, if they are, they've got a great career opportunity here with us, because it's not just security operations. You can go into threat intelligence, tactical threat response, and you can go into our advanced threat analytics team. There's a whole range of different kind of career options for people. So that's why when we're hiring here, we do put a huge focus on that passion. We want people who really know that this is the career that they're interested in, they're curious, and they've got that mindset you described. So look, Rob, I think we're gonna leave it there. It's been great chatting with you and getting your insights into all the topics we discussed. There was a lot to unpack there. Thankfully, being a podcast, people can pause and rewind and play it back. I hope to our listeners that you enjoyed the episode today. Please look out for other episodes in this series on our website. We've got loads of other useful content on there as well. If you want to learn more about our Security Operations Center, you'll see some video content, including myself and Rob, up there that describes our operation. And if you're interested in threat research, there's a whole true blog section up there. Some interesting reports and things that we've seen from threat actors and things. Again, thank you for your time in joining us today. And my thanks to Rob, and we'll see you again on the podcast.
Thanks for having us.